People don't usually ask me to speak. They generally want me to shut up. I also felt a bit anxious. Deanna wanted me to tell my story. I don't really like talking about myself, and I felt a bit awkward about it. I'd rather talk about issues or ideas, but I'll do my best. I guess if I had to give this speech a title, it would be, Make Yourself Uncomfortable. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself and what makes me comfortable. I grew up with lots of chaos. My mom was ill during my entire childhood, and our home was very chaotic and disorganized. I like order and peace and quiet. I like organization and lists and plans. Until not too long ago, my life was pretty orderly and organized. Not that I always had my life go as planned. All I really wanted to do was get married and have lots of babies. I got married 23 years ago, but the babies didn't come. So I kind of fell into a career and eventually started my own business. In 1999, I finally got my heart's desire when we adopted our son, Jack. My life was pretty perfect by my standards. I had my family and my business. I was active in my local church and homeschooling Jack. Life was pretty good. Before I go on, you need to understand some things. This church was a small church, maybe 30 to 40 people attending on a Sunday. I've been very active. I played piano, I taught Sunday school, I planned a music each Sunday. I'm pretty sure I held every office in that church except elder and pastor, because I was ineligible for those because I was a woman. I was a big fish in a very small pond. The church we ended up at was Grace Fellowship. And some of you might be familiar with Grace. It seats around 1,000 people and is close to full most weeks. It's quite a big change and significant for a couple of reasons. First, my circle of friends enlarged to include people who were much more Trumbull County than I am. Our orbit changed. We were spending more time here in Trumbull County. Also, the change from a small church where I was always busy to a large church where I had some difficulty figuring out where I could serve gave me some time to get involved in some other things. Another thing that happened to me, and probably to lots of you, was Facebook. The interesting thing about Facebook and me, though, is it led me to people in my own backyard. I even met Barry and Deanna that way. Another big thing that came from Facebook and had a real impact on me is that I got involved with volunteering for Jim Graham's congressional campaign 2 years ago. Now understand, I've been interested in politics since I was 15 years old. But I'd been busy with my perfect little life, so I couldn't get involved. I hadn't gotten very involved. I did volunteer in 2004 and 2008 in the presidential campaigns, but this was the first local campaign that I'd ever been involved with. Through that campaign, I met more Trumbull County people who knew way more than I did about the issues that we have here in Trumbull. I was starting to realize that maybe I needed to get more involved. And one thing that happened during that campaign also is I became a precinct committee person and an executive committee person for the Trumbull County GOP. And then earlier this year, I was asked to be part of their communications group. Now, the communications group really just tried to communicate conservative ideas through letters to the editor and social media. And we actually, before we even communicate those things, we try to study the issues, not just the national and international, but also the local ones. And one of the local ones that I became involved with was the court consolidation. I ended up not only writing about this issue, but getting involved in pressure with commissioners to move forward on it. Also out of the communications group came the opportunity for me to write for the next year for the Trib as a community columnist. And my goal when I started writing that column was to try to speak to people who were like I was, out there with their own little busy lives, not really involved with what was going on, with what was happening in this county. I knew kind of what was going on, and I thought maybe somebody should do something. Well, over the last few years, I realized that I needed to be one of those somebodies. And in the last 7 or 8 months, I guess I've done just that. However, it's come at a cost to me. I've always been a busy person, but as I've gotten more involved, not just with writing the column and also with campaigns and going to meetings, and remember, all the while I'm still running my business and homeschooling my son. I've become busy to a point where my life is very chaotic. Exactly the opposite of my comfort zone. I don't have any peace and quiet and calm. I've become less organized than I like, and often my plans and my lists get thrown out the window. Now I need to tell you one other thing that's happened to me over the last few years. And it's a little bit personal, but I need to share because of the truth that it revealed to me. In the last several years, my husband began to change physically and mentally. I made excuses for those changes, but realized in May of this year that something was truly wrong with him. I took him to the doctor, and after ruling out a few other things, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. All of my organization and lists and plans for our future were gone with the wind. What was left of my comfort zone was carried away like a house in a twister. Like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, I wasn't in Kansas anymore. And not only that, I would never go back to Kansas. I would never have my perfect little life back. I would forever be uncomfortable. In the last couple of months, though, I've realized some things about being uncomfortable. First, it's not the end of the world. I will survive this. Second, and this is the big one, nothing important gets accomplished when you're comfortable. Think about it. A pearl is formed when sand irritates an oyster. What's a diamond but a lump of coal under pressure? Tonight, I want to challenge you to make yourself uncomfortable. Now, I know that everyone in here knows we have big problems here in Trumbull County. Not just septic problems, not just health department or CSV problems. We have a pervasive culture among our public officials that makes them think they aren't really public servants, that they are above the rules. They are little kings in their castles, and we are just allowed to live here. We need to change this, but we can't change this until we change ourselves, until we make ourselves uncomfortable. Now, not everyone has to be as uncomfortable as Barry and Deanna have been, or even as I have become. But I do think that there are some things that everyone needs to be doing. These are things that might be out of your comfort zone, but are really things that all good citizens should be doing. First, we need to inform ourselves. Thomas Jefferson said, "An informed citizenry is the only repository of the public will." If we, the people, really want to be in charge, we must inform ourselves. And if we don't, there's consequences. Jefferson also said, "If once the people become inattentive to the public affairs, you and I, in Congress and assemblies, judges and governors, shall become wolves." It seems to be the law of our general nature, in spite of individual exceptions. Wolves. That's just so Trumbull County. But we have to do more than just inform ourselves. And this is where it can get uncomfortable. We need to inform others. It can be writing letters to the editor or just talking to our friends. This may be bringing up touchy subjects with our friends, nudging them to find out for themselves what is really going on. It may be uncomfortable, but it's necessary that we inform others. I don't think we need to beat people over the head, but we need to work at making sure people know what is really going on. Finally, we need to get involved. Go to meetings. Find out who your trustees are and what they're doing. Go to commissioners' meetings. Go to health department meetings. Support Barry and Deanna. All of you are here supporting them tonight, but we have to continue to support them. This is going to be a long fight. And I want to say something about this fight. I've heard people refer to it as a David and Goliath fight. And that's true because it is the little guy against the big guy. But we need to remember the story of David and Goliath. David wasn't just fighting for himself. he was fighting for the nation of Israel. Barry and Deanna aren't just fighting for themselves. They're fighting for all of us.